Hello students, welcome to the Recitals in Depth by Vajiram and Ravi. Here we will be covering the economy and infrastructure November 2024 current affair topics in great detail. The broader themes which we are going to cover today are as follows: Indian agriculture, money and banking, public finance, investment and infrastructure, and social development. So stay tuned. So hello guys, welcome back to the second part where we will be continuing with the rest of the discussion, where the very first article here is regarding National Mission on Natural Farming. Now recently the Government of India is promoting the use of sustainable ways of agriculture in the country, and that is highly important. Why? Because we know that over a period of time, we see that there is a trend of deterioration in the fertility of our soils, in the various aspects of contamination of groundwater, specifically in the rural areas, and also presence of microplastics, presence of inorganic chemicals, and also presence of pesticides and insecticides in our food chain that is leading to greater and serious issues of, say, adversity in the human health, such as cancer, such as diabetes, which are, say, arising from our fooding habits, from food which is as common as rice or, say, common vegetables, right? So that is why our Government of India is trying to go back, right? Or say we as a country, we aspire to go back to our conventional or say traditional way of farming. Instead of adopting the highly, say, commercial practices, we will be trying to understand how naturally the same thing can be done. And while there are various apprehensions and challenges with the concept of natural farming, we'll be also looking at that in the rest of the discussion. But there is a growing interest in this particular domain. We have also seen that the Government of India, and especially some states, for example Sikkim, is promoting the use of, or say, cultivation of organic crops, or undertaking organic farming over a period of time. While organic farming is also something which we must be adopting over a long period of time, right? But we have to understand there are some issues such as cost, high acquisition cost of, say, capital, maintenance, and so on, with reference to organic farming. Natural farming gives us a more viable opportunity to undertake farming activities and also sustain animal husbandry activities too. So let us understand what is the main context of the news. First, so recently the Union Cabinet approved this National Mission on Natural Farming. Within this discussion, I will be telling you about some of the case studies which we can quote in your mains answers, and also this particular mission is extremely important for the examination because there can be a standalone question as to what are the provisions of this particular thing, right? So that is why we understand that as a centrally sponsored scheme, which we understand the centrally sponsored scheme means that the contributions for this particular mission will be done by the state and the center in a shared manner. So the tune of around 2,481 crores, this particular scheme has been launched, and it is under the purview of the Ministry of Agriculture and Farmers Welfare. So in the very beginning, I'll be introducing you all to the concept of natural farming. Now, natural farming composes of these 5 things. Firstly, Bij Amrit, Vapasa, Jeev Amrit, mulching, and plant protection. So let us understand each of the things in detail. Now see, whenever we are talking about this natural farming, we are talking about, going back to our roots, right? In our ancient times, in also our medieval times, till the advent of commercial crops, commercial farming, our farmers used to sustainably, cultivate the fields and the crops. So one of the first things that they did, and that is also something which is very basic in nature, that is coating the seeds in organic manure, such as gobar, such as various other plant and animal waste. So what we can do, we can coat the particular seeds in cow urine, dung, and various other, plant remains. So once we understand, we take a particular seed, right, and we try to coat it with various other, say, organic material, that will be giving much more amount of, say, nutrition that is required for the early development of the seed before even it is planted in the soil, right? So we see in this natural farming, we seek to improve the productivity of our agricultural, say, practices. In our commercial agriculture, what we do, we apply a lot of fertilizers, we apply a lot of other chemicals so that the plants will be productive, and also to produce minimum amount of wastage, to produce or say to reduce the amount of diseases in the plant. So we apply a lot of chemicals, right? That takes the care of that productivity part. In natural farming, we cannot use this kind of synthetic fertilizers and chemicals and so on, because it is polluting for the environment, right? So what we'll be using will be natural things such as this, to firstly coat the soil to protect the seeds and to help them grow from the very beginning before even it is planted. Then there is also a sustainable practice known as Jeevamrit. Now, Jeevamrit means it is trying to enhancing, this is a particular practice on how we can enhance the, say, productivity of the soil. This is done by using cow urine again, dung, right, flour of pulses, jaggery concoction, and so on. So what all this will be inculcating in the soil is something which we know as soil organic matter, right? So this will be including so much amount of, say microorganisms, bacteria, which will be trying to, say, increase the soil organic matter, which is extremely dense in nutrition that is needed for the soil, for the various crops, right? And this particular thing, which is soil organic matter, if it is present in the soil in huge amounts, it will be beneficial for the plants, right? And also when we understand such amount of, say, items will be also be promoting the amount of microorganisms, right, such as worms and various other soil related creatures that helps in bringing oxygen in the soil, correct? So higher amount of soil organic matter will be aiding the fertility of the soil, correct? So this is the second principle. The third principle is Vapasa. Vapasa means that you are trying to activate the earthworms in the soil in order to create water vapor condensation. We know that there are so many earthworms, so many soil related creatures. So these particular creatures will be living in the soil, right? And they also require oxygen, they also require this kind of water requirement and so on. So they lead to creating a microclimate, right? So they create microclimate, micro ecosystems in this region, which is extremely beneficial for the soil again, and also for the plant. Another principle is undertaking what we know as mulching. Now mulching is a process where you create microclimate along with that particular principle. Here you create microclimate by this particular process. For example, now imagine a particular crop, right? The leaves are here, right? Then we have the soil part. Then we have the roots of the plant. These are the roots of the plant, correct? Now what we do under mulching, under natural farming, is that we cover the base of the plant, with various amount of, say, dry leaves, sometimes even plastic, right? So what we do, we try to cover the base of the soil, base of the plant at that particular interaction with the soil here, and this particular thing will be creating a microclimate. How? Because if we cover something here, it will be not letting the water vapor from the soil escape, right? So this region will be quite humid. This particular region which is covered by dry leaves or plastics, right, or any other component, this particular region will be becoming very humid and will not be allowing any kind of moisture from the soil to escape into the atmosphere. So it also aids in the minimization of losses of water, right? So in specifically regions which are prone to heat, right, and hot and dry conditions. This will be helping the plants to conserve water, to also helping the soil to conserve water, right, and have the optimal usage. And also when we understand this is an humid region which has been generated, correct, so water collects in this particular say aspect, and this also promotes the healthy growth of microorganisms, right, and also it protects the base of the plant from direct heat and so on. So these things help the plant in so many ways, correct. And finally, as you can see, these are all traditional practices. Finally, we have the process of plant protection at the very end, which is a process involving spraying of biological concoctions which prevents pest, disease and weed problems, and protects the fertility of the soil. So what happens is that we, for plant protection, generally what various farmers at Andhra Pradesh, correct, various tribal sections in the Andhra Pradesh, they do what? They take neem leaves. They take neem leaves and they make a paste out of it, right? They paste the particular neem leaves and also the various other medicinal plants. They mix it with water. They also mix various amounts of say millets within the same. They have some of the millets which are mixed in this solution of neem leaf and water, and this is a natural pesticide for them, natural weedicide for them. So for plant protection, they rely on even here natural processes. So you see here, in this entire process, right, in this entire process of natural farming, Bij Amrit, Jiv Amrit, Vapasa, mulching and plant protection, we are not using any kind of chemical additives or any kind of other components. What we are doing, we are only using the nature-based solutions. That is why natural farming is also one of the say many things which actually comes under nature-based solutions, right, of doing sustainable agriculture. And also if you can see all the raw materials which are involved here, don't we already get from the plant or say from the farm resources, such as there can be a cow with a particular farmer, so the farmer is using the cow's urine, dung and also various other say for example pulses, jaggery and so on. So everything is coming from the farm. So we can understand that this is also something which is zero budget, which is operating under zero budget for the farmer. The farmer have to invest minimal amount of say money for the various raw materials here. That is why it is also known as zero budget natural farming, which was conceptualized in modern times efficiently by Subhas Palekar. Remember this name? You can quote his name in the introductions or the conclusions of any answers pertaining to natural farming. So here the say aspects of zero budget natural farming was conceptualized, the modern aspects here by Subhas Palekar, who implemented the same in many states, right? That is why he is also known as the father of modern natural farming, right, in the country by some of the agriculturalist say experts here. So as of over a period of time, the government also appreciated this zero budget natural farming, because we understand that some of the issues of our conventional farming, right, pertain to firstly the decrease in the fertility of the soil, right, due to heavy use of chemicals, fertilizers and so on, right, which do not augur well for the natural development of the soil. Next, we also have so many say other issues of groundwater contamination, right, and also deterioration in the stock of groundwater. Why? Because of free electricity subsidy given to the various say farmers in most of the states in the country, they lead to overconsumption of groundwater, which is leading to severe water crisis in the states of Uttar Pradesh, Haryana, Western UP, Tamil Nadu and so on, due to which we understand associated with this particular issue, with these two issues rather, is the issue of increased amount of desertification of our agricultural field. Desertification is a condition which implies the spread of desert-like conditions such as dryness, loss of soil moisture, loss of soil organic matter over a period of time due to decrease in the various components of the soil. Right, over a period of time the soil becomes very loose and the land becomes a desert essentially. So these are some of the issues here. Next, it is also kind of costly to do intensive commercial agriculture, right? For the farmers it comes at a huge cost. Sometimes the market is also not able to compensate the farmers with reference to the high cost they are facing. Already due to the loss of fertility of the soil, they have to apply more fertilizers, more seeds and so on. On the top of that, the farming becomes very costly, but the prices at the market do not compensate for the various cost, right? Because we know that the farmers get much more less, right? And even the implementation of the MSP in the country is very patchy. In some states implementation is healthy, but in the other states implementation is very, very patchy and very doubtful. So apart from this, we have so many other issues. Some of the issues you can also let me know in the comments. But the main aim that the government of India is having over a period of time is to promote sustainable agriculture. Also, the various agricultural exports of our country require the products to be of high quality standards. So that is why the government of India has also introduced various norms, rules and regulations for promoting organic farming in the country, right? And based on this, Sikkim is actually a very successful state in this particular development of organic farming. But over a period of time, the government of India has also thought about standardizing the rules and regulations regarding the same, where we have the promotion of organic farming under various schemes. And one of those particular schemes is known as Paramparagat Krishi Vikas Yojana, right? And this is a particular scheme which is looking at the targeting of various organic produce in the country, right? And trying to grow that target over a period of time. Under this particular PKVY scheme, the organic farmers are encouraged to take up certification of various other produce of other organic farmers in the region. So what I mean is that, for example, that this is a particular area, maybe this is a village where there are 6 farms, right? And for example, this farmer, these 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5 farmers are involved in organic farming, correct? So they produce organic apples, they produce organic vegetables, rice and so on. Because we have to understand, organic farming is much more sustainable than our conventional farming, that is, commercial farming, right? And for example, there is a 6th farmer here who wants to undertake the organic farming activities as of now. But how can we certify, how can we ascertain that the 6th farmer is actually growing organic crops or not? Right? So maybe there is a possibility that the 6th farmer can, cheat the entire process by adding some chemicals, a little bit of chemical, a little bit of this kind of thing, right, in the soil. So that is where the self-certification, quality of this particular scheme comes into picture. What happens here is that the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th and 5th farmer, they will be doing what? They will be coming together. They will be forming a informal committee, and via this informal committee they will be going and visiting the 6th farmer's field, and they will be then looking as to what are the types of seeds the 6th farmer is using, the fertilizers, organic fertilizers they are using or not. So after ascertaining everything, all of them will be telling that okay, so he is in a position to undertake organic farming. So that is why in this Paramparagat Krishi Vikas Yojana, the government is relying on the organic farmers, existing organic farmers, to certify new organic farmers as to how organic their cultivation or methods of cultivation are actually, right? So this is where this self-certification thing is to coming into picture, correct? So this is a major component here. And here, so whatever the crops which are grown under this particular scheme, they are not ready for exports, because for exports we have a different scheme. Can anyone let me know in the comments what the particular scheme is, right? So for our exports, this is not the particular scheme, because this is a self-certification aspect, which is not a very formal thing, right? But this can be sold, or these crops can be sold domestically, right? The crops can be sold domestically in a domestic country. So this is what the scheme is all about. And under this particular scheme, we also have something which we know as Bharatiya Prakritik Krishi Paddhati. So this is also trying to promote the use of natural fertilizers in our organic farming. Now what the government has done, the government has changed the name of that particular sub-component of the scheme to National Mission on Natural Farming, correct? Now, as a case study also, you can note it down that this particular initiative was implemented as a part of the Namami Gange initiative, where under this particular aspect, around 54 districts were covered to spread the cultivation of, or spread the promotion of natural farming, right? And here, out of this, 1,000 villages adopted natural farming, and 24,000 hectares of land is doing natural farming right now, right? So it is quite, a very innovative kind of an approach, or a kind of a government scheme where we see a healthy amount of adoption of natural farming practices by the farmer as a part of a scheme which is promoting the overall development of the river Ganga. Also, you will be very interested to know that, as of now, the Ministry of Agriculture has identified around 228 districts in the country where the fertilizer sales are more than the national average sales, right? So in these districts, this means that the amount of fertilizers that the farmers are using are much more than the national average. That means these particular farmers are maybe seeing the decline in the quality of their soil. That's why they're buying more and more fertilizers. And otherwise, they do not want to keep fertilizers in their home, right? So that is where comes this mission. Well, to revive those lands, to bring in various amounts of natural and sustainable amount of practices, the natural farming has been proposed as a mission, right? So this will be a standalone centrally sponsored scheme where we'll be looking at the salient features which are very important for your prelims and also mains examination. So firstly, as you can see, this mission will be promoting natural farming in the country in mission mode. So this will be undertaken as a serious initiative for implementation. Total outlay is 2,481 crores, right, by the government of India and the state government. Now this will be implemented in 15,000 clusters in gram panchayats where who are actually willing to undertake natural farming, right, and reach around 1 crore farmers and initiate natural farming in around 7.5 lakh hectares area. So right now, please also do observe this kind of trends, that right now, whenever we are talking about agricultures, and also sometimes about manufacturing industries, the term clusters come into picture. So clusters means that maybe in this particular aspect, there is one cluster, is another cluster in in various gram panchayats, right? So in one cluster itself, if we can zoom into these clusters, so there can be so many other farmers, right? So all of the farmers are undertaking natural farming, right? So it helps the government to identify and target the beneficiaries by forming a cluster of like-minded or like activity, kind of a particular submission here, right? So that is why we understand that right now government initiatives promote the use of clusters, right? Now preference will be given to those areas which are having prevalence of practicing natural farming or natural farmers, right? And also, for example, say we have the various PSCs, farmer FPOs, and so on. So PSCs are primary agricultural credit societies, right? State Renewable Livelihood Mission, correct? And the farmer producer organizations. So in those areas, we find that the formation of clusters are very easy, because we know PSC is the lowest, say, or say the particular level of our cooperative society at the grassroots level. These give loan to various farmers at the local level. We have FPOs as organizations. We have various natural farming for farmers. So these people are well associated with the local conditions. So that is why preference will be given to them. Also, need-based 10,000 bio-input resource centers will be set up. So these centers essentially means that whatever the natural fertilizers that the farmers need in terms of neem crops and so on, so various other things, they will be set up to give ready to use natural farming inputs for the farmers. So 10,000 units will be set up, around 2,000 model demonstration farms where natural farming is practiced in a very ideal way, will be established as Krishi Vigyan Kendras, agriculture universities, to promote the best practices here. Farmers also to be provided easy and simple certification system, and also dedicated common branding to provide access to markets. Now when it comes to the marketing of the agriculture or say natural farming products, right, they need some special support, because they are not doing this kind of commercial farming and using this natural or say chemicals which will be aiding the productivity. So there can be a chance where the productivity might be less and where they will be requiring some market access from the government side. So that particular thing also will be given, where they can be given certifications, common branding to promote natural farming. Right? So these are the things we have to keep in mind when it comes to salient features. And finally, when we discuss about the potential benefits, so the first benefit is soil conservation. So I need not even explain as to why, because we have looked into the principle here. Second is about water conservation, right? And also promote the groundwater recharge, right, over a period of time. Third benefit is promoting agroforestry, right? Agroforestry is a kind of agriculture practice where we can cultivate crops alongside a forest, or say promotion of farms into forest, which can sequester carbon dioxide from the atmosphere and at the same time also promote the growth of crops, right? One very famous example from the rest of the world is something which we know as alley cultivation. Right? In various forests, they construct various alleys like this in various, say, forested regions, and within these alleys, they cultivate the crops, correct? Then, the fourth benefit is how we can coexist or help the coexistence of animal husbandry plus, crops. Because we can use the animal wastes and apply them in the cultivation of crops. Hence, we can also achieve this target of doubling the farmer's income, right, which was proposed by Ashok Dalwai committee, correct? And also, at the end of the day, it is also helping us to fight climate change, because via mulching, via Jeevamrit and Bijamrit and so on, we can help sequestration of CO2 in the soil. And based on this, maybe natural farming can also be standardized in such a way by which we can get carbon credit in the near future, which can also add to a third stream of income for the farmers, right? Because the entire thing is sustainable, correct? The entire, natural farming is sustainable in nature. That is why we can take help of this particular activity to generate carbon credits in the future too. Apart from this, you let me in the comments what can be some other benefits too, and also the answer of this MCQ, right? So let's move on to the next one. Recently, our Union Home Minister attended the Diamond Jubilee celebrations of National Federation of State Cooperative Banks Limited. So here, I will be firstly discussing very briefly on the, say, this particular federation itself. So this federation is helping in voicing the various concerns and also addressing the challenges, showcasing some, say, a model cooperative banks in the country, right? So this is giving a forum. This is a particular forum for cooperative banks in the country. So a discussion kind of a forum, right, where all of the management employees, they can come together and they can talk about some common issues, right? And also this is about, say, establishing the coordination with the union government, RBI, state governments, NABARD and various other institutions also. So this federation is actually a point for coordination, right? This can be with the government of India, with the RBI, with the rest of the bodies such as NABARD, state government and so on. So why we need this coordination is a reason why we actually have to look into the various issues of cooperative banks. There have been issues of scandals, corruptions and so many scams taking place in the this particular cooperative bank sector. That is why we need this. And finally, it is also about promoting research and development in this particular aspect, that is cooperative banks, how we can efficiently streamline the operations of the same. So this is all about the forum. And also I want all of you to help you revise a little bit about the cooperative banks too. The cooperative banks, these come, some of the banks come under Banking Regulation Act. For example, we have two types of cooperative banks broadly: the urban cooperative banks, the rural cooperative banks. Urban cooperative banks are actually single state, multi-state, which are regulated by the Reserve Bank of India. Earlier it was also regulated by the state government, but due to scams and scandals, RBI took it over. These are also something which we know as primary cooperative banks, right? Which are actually very important in some of the, say, urban areas, right? So they can be single state and multi-state too. So rural cooperative banks are also divided into two types: long-term rural cooperative banks, short-term rural cooperative banks. Long-term rural cooperative banks are actually known as development cooperative banks because they give long-term loans, right? There are further of two types. So they give long-term loans to various business activities in the rural areas, agricultural activities such as irrigation, such as infrastructure over a long period of time, right? Short-term cooperative banks, firstly we have the state rural cooperative banks, then we have the district cooperative banks. Now up to the district level, we have the dual regulation of RBI and the respective state government, right? After this, we have at the grassroots level the primary agricultural credit societies. So PACS is at the grassroots level, which is not under purview RBI but the NABARD, right? And the State Registry Society is actually, mainly it is a NABARD which is supervising the PACS. And NABARD is a very important institution when it comes to the rural, say, credit system in the country. So you have to understand that the cooperative banks are actually the banks which are, organized in this hierarchy. And also they are operated by their own members, right? They are operated by their own members, and members are also customers in this particular bank, right? So these are actually the main concepts of cooperative societies, right? Also the interest rates of cooperative banks are actually far lower than the interest rates of commercial banks because they are not profit motive. They are not having profit motive. They are actually having the motive to promote credits between their members, right? So these are some of the things which we need to keep in mind also for our prelims examination. Recently, the Portland Institute came up with a Network Readiness Index 2024 for the country, where we can understand that India's rank has climbed to 49th in 2024 report. And this is one of the reports which we can quote in our infrastructural answers or in any of the topics where we have to talk about India's aspirations in increasing connectivity in the country, right? Increasing the development of telecom sector in the country, increasing the aspect of digital infrastructure in the country pertaining to network and say communications. India has done a good job, improved the rank to 49th, that is up 11 point from the last report, right? And score has increased from 49 to 53 points. And here we'll be understanding firstly, whenever we have some of the important reports where India has done a good job, so we have to look into the report first, who is publishing it, and also how that report is calculated. If you're talking about the score, if I talk about the score of 49.53 right now, so how this score came into being? Because the index is talking about some important components, right? So UPSC prelims can have some of the questions as to that, for example, they will be giving you 5-6 components, right? And they will be asking you which are the components which are a part of this index. So that is why, remember that technology, people, governance and impact. On the technology, we have access, content, future technologies. People, we have individuals, business and governments. So it is actually looking into the readiness of our country's network with reference to individual, business level and government level. Then about governance, where it is talking about the trust, regulation and the inclusion principles and impact on economic quality of life and sustainable developmental goal contribution. So based on this particular components, the report is calculated and we can understand that India is having the first rank in AI talent and ICT service exports. Always we have seen that India is brilliant in its service exports. Second rank with reference subscriptions and mobile internet traffic. Third rank in domestic market scale. Fourth rank in annual investment in telecommunication services. So these are the various aspects which you have to keep in mind, which India has done good. Apart from this, according to the report, and you have to note these things down because you have to write proper amount of introductions if you're talking about a good amount of financial inclusion, digital inclusion which is taking place in the country. That means the tele density increased from 72 to 84% in 2024. So this is a good news that most of the Indians are becoming connected to the communication network. Wireless connections reached 119 crore connections. What is the population of our country? And with that, you can understand that we have 119 crore wireless connections. That is a huge leap, right? And when you talk about the rural area, this has seen a sharp rise in internet subscribers to 94 crores. So we can understand while most of our India lives in our villages, and also most of our rural areas are connected to the internet, which is a good thing because this is promoting what we know as digital inclusion. And digital inclusion is also one of the major, or say lack of digital inclusion in the past was actually one of the major reasons due to why the rural areas were backward in various aspects. If this is improving over a period of time, this is actually a good thing. Also, India has embarked on the promotion of the 5G technologies. Soon it will be coming with the Bharat 6G vision technology, right, which is the next generation of 5G. So India is always ahead when it comes to connectivity. And also the private sector in India is also very responsive with cheap data rates, right? So this is some say good news which is coming. That is why please do let me know the answer of this particular MCQ in the comments below. Recently, the Supreme Court has allowed the various telecom companies which were under litigation to claim their sin VAT tax credits, right, for the installation of mobile towers and say the peripherals like prefabricated buildings and various other say technical things. So the telecom sector and some of the companies there were stuck in litigation based on what would be the duties that they can claim. Supreme Court recently clarified that the mobile towers and those buildings fall within the definition of capital goods or inputs under the same VAT rules of 2004. Now, when we talk about this entire thing, right? So let us look at one example and understand it. Firstly, understand that capital goods are actually those kind of goods which are used, say partially, right? Or say consumed say fully, sometimes when it is reaching its end stage, right, it is concerned with those kind of goods which are consumed during the process of production, which are used during production. So for example, say if I'm using this particular pen and say my particular say screen here, it is used to teach you something. So this is my capital. Without this I cannot, for example, say teach you something, right? And also, for example, say without this pen maybe I cannot write something, right? So this is something which is becoming a capital good if I'm using this particular things to actually facilitate economic activities, right? For example, say in the case of this telecom sector companies, for example, the various amount of say mobile towers and the radars and the various components, right, which they purchased. So these purchases were not made for fun, right? They use this to transmit say connectivity over a period of time, so that the various consumers at the end, they can use mobile internet services, telecom services, while they are paying some fee for that, right? So this is a business that they are doing, and they are doing the business with the help of some capital good, correct? And that is why we understand that whenever, for example, this company is buying these mobile towers or radars or these prefabricated buildings for their production, they need to also sometimes pay a tax, correct? So under the say earlier tax regime, right, there were this SEN-VAT rules 2004, where if companies are purchasing any capital goods, and if those capital goods are included within the SEN-VAT rules of 2004, right, and if they are paying any tax or on those particular goods, and after paying the price and the tax they are using for the production purposes, they will be getting a refund of the tax. Why? Because we know, under the principles of taxation in economics, we cannot double tax the consumer at the very end of the day, right? For example, say if we have some taxes on capital goods for a producer, so do you think that the producer will be say taking the tax on herself or himself? No. In a capitalistic world, the producer always shift any kind of tax burden to the consumer, and at the end, the consumers also pay the various indirect taxes. In those days, it was the VAT and the various other state taxes, central taxes, levies, right? So at the end of the day, the indirect taxes were borne by the people themselves. And if the companies are levied some taxes, so this tax will be adding to the burden further altogether. So that is why a particular activity of this laying of taxes is actually seen as a refund by the companies. Also for the companies, it is expensive for them to pay taxes again and again, right, on the capital goods. So it makes no sense to pay taxes on capital goods and also pay indirect taxes at the very end. So that is why under this mod VAT, which are actually modified version of VAT, within which we have also the same VAT, we have these rules for which capital goods and the taxes will be refunded at tax credits, right? So these are the credits which the companies can claim when they're filing their taxes in the next quarter or the next year, pertaining to the financial year. So they can claim some credit that this is the tax I have paid earlier, so right now you have to discount me that equivalent amount from my overall tax liabilities, right? So this is what SEN-VAT is all about. So this was a litigation case which was going before, which the Supreme Court recently ruled that right now you have to refund the taxes which have been paid. But right now we do not have SEN-VAT and mod VAT and VAT. We right now have GST, goods and services taxes, where it has the own aspect of input, credit tax, right? So what we have to understand that those particular credits under SEN-VAT will now be converted into GST credits, right? So it is a good news for those companies, telecom companies, where they will be getting those SEN-VAT credit as GST input tax credit, right? So this is the entire issue that we were going to discuss. According to this, you let me know what is the answer to this question in the comments below. Recently, RBI published some rules and norms where some of the FPIs can be classified an FDI, such as foreign portfolio investments, which can be classified as foreign direct investments. So there can be scenarios and cases. And if at all they are classified as FDI, what would be the various requirements for the same? So this is something which RBI clarified in the recent times. But firstly, we'll be starting with a very basic difference revision of FDI versus FPIs. We know that FDI stands for foreign direct investment, FPI stands for foreign portfolio investment, and according to definition of both of them, FDI is seen as an investment that is undertaken over a long period of time. If there's an investor such as McDonald's who is setting up a branch in India, so that branch will be continuing for 10 years, 20 years, 50 years, 100 years, right? That is a long-term investment, and from that investment people are going and eating food there, so they are generating revenue and profit, so that is their source of income. So generally the investments comes as a huge amount, right? Over a period of time, that particular investment of huge amount will be generating much more huge income for those FDI, right? Or say the foreign investors who are doing direct investment, right? So it is like setting up physical assets. Physical assets is something that we can touch and feel for that particular company, such as setting up factories, offices, and so on. The control, right, with reference to this particular activity is providing management control, right, in this particular, say, branches, offices. The nature of investment is that it is much more stable and long term, correct? Then sectors, it will be focusing on specific sectors or businesses. It can be based on, say, the defense sector. It can be based on, say, the various amounts of, say, steel industry, coal industry. So FDI can be with reference to the domestic, say, producers. The same can be with reference to foreign, manufacturers too. Regulation is that they are heavily regulated by the government policies in the country. So under the regulation aspect, we have some routes of FDI, where we have automatic FDI, right, which is another automatic route. So any country, a particular aspect country, they can come into those particular sectors and they can invest. For example, electronic items and so on, right? They can have 100% ownership in that company. They can have 50%, right? So they can have, say, an unlimited amount of FDI. Next, we have some, FDIs which are controlled, right, which are, say, not automatic in nature. For example, the government has said that I can allow only up to 20% FDI. I can allow only up to 75% FDI. So there we have some investment limits, correct? And also there are some, countries. So there are some countries such as China, right, and all of the neighboring countries in our, say, aspect, right? So for those countries, even the automatic route FDI becomes regulated. For our neighborhood countries and also some other list of countries, we have some regulations for them because of the security concerns. So with the government approval route, they can invest in various other sectors, right? Okay, now let us move on to the FPI here, where, for example, imagine there is a foreign investor who has lots of millions of billions of dollars. Now they are interested in investing in Indian stock market or investing in Indian companies, but it is not interested in management of those particular companies. So they are only interested in returns, correct? So such as stocks and bonds, they are interested in these various financial assets. So they do not want any management control. They just see it as a passive investment, and that is why they can be, present in India for a short time, right? So it is just temporary give and take affair with the Indian stock markets in this particular manner. And also they can be extremely volatile. It depends on their mood. It depends on the market returns. It depends on global conditions, whether they will be staying in the country or not. If they're getting high returns, they will be staying. If they are not getting the returns, they will be living, as simple as that, right? And also they focus on financial markets, but under FDI they focus on sectors or businesses, correct? And also FPIs are having lesser amount of regulations than the FDI, right? And these are the main things which you have to keep in mind as differences. And here RBI has released some guidelines for classifying particular FDIs after an investment by the FPIs. So here the very first thing that the RBI provided as a guideline is that as for the foreign exchange management say rules 2019, right, and particular FPIs investment in Indian company must be below 10%, must be below 10% for it to be an FPI. Otherwise, if it is more than that, it becomes an FDI, right? So they must be having 10% of the paid up shares, right? Paid up equity shares. Also, if this FPI is breaching this limit, then either, for example, say this FPI has right now say 12% shares, correct? So this 10% is actually under FPI, otherwise it will become an FDI. So either the person has to sell 2% shares, or that particular person has to convert the entire amount of investment into, or say the excess holdings into FDI, right? That will be possible, that must be done within 5 days, correct? Also, whenever we have this particular classification, or say reclassification of FPI as FDI, right, the investor must be obtaining necessary approvals from the government, right? Whenever we have this excess amount of FPI, right, this kind, for example, at 12%, so the approvals must be sought from the government of India if the person is converting it into FDI, right? So this is why, because you have to understand that we have just seen that FDIs can be in form of say automatic route, government approval route, some of the neighboring countries also for which we have some FDI restrictions. So it depends on whether you are fulfilling those criteria or not. For that, you need an approval if you are trying to convert it into FDI. Also, this requires compliance with various guidelines for countries sharing borders with India, as we have discussed, right? So that is where we have to look into this particular aspect here. And also, there is a role of an investee company. That is, we have to understand that the FPIs which are investing in the country, they must be actually taking the consent, or say various amount of approvals from the investee company from where they're coming from, correct? And they have to adhere to various rules and regulations in the country, right? And finally, there can be also sectoral restrictions in the reclassification here. So based on various sectors, there can be some of the restrictions here. But these two were the main thing that I wanted to instruct you. And here, you let me know after this, what is the answer of the same question here in the comments below. Finally, we have come to the very last topic here, that the RBI is bringing back its gold assets to India. We have covered this previously too. And right now, RBI has brought around 130 metric tons of gold owned by RBI from the foreign, in the foreign aspects into the country. Mainly, it has bought back the gold from the Bank of England, right? And this is some situation which we are seeing right now over a period of time, right? Now, what we have to keep in mind is that the Bank of England is actually one of the world's largest gold vaults. It holds the world's largest gold vaults, second only to New York Federal Reserves. It holds around 4 lakh bars of gold, holding gold for many central banks worldwide. But whenever, for example, RBI, if it is having facility of storing gold with the Bank of England, the Bank of England will be charging some fees for storing that gold. So storage costs are associated with the gold here, right? Now, when we talk about India's gold in the Bank of England, right? So here we have to keep things in mind. That, for example, the RBI continues to retain 324 tons of its gold reserves under the protection of the Bank of England, right? And here we understand around 20 tons are additionally managed through gold deposit schemes. Storing parts of India's gold in London provides RBI with the immediate access to the London bullion market, allowing for liquidity in the market for RBI. That is why sometimes it keeps this particular thing despite the storage costs. Also, historically in 1991, India sent 47 tons of its gold to the Bank of England during this balance of payment crisis during this time. And this was one of the conditionalities where the Indian government has to send this gold to have financing benefits from the rest of the world and international creditors. As of now, as you can see, from 2020, 21, 22, 23, the holding of gold, including gold deposit held abroad, is increasing. Correct? This is actually one of the scenarios where the entire world is doing this activity, and not only India is having this particular strategy. Why? Because we have to understand the broader strategy. RBI is engaged in something which we know as, it is not directly, but it is trying to indirectly engage in something which we know as de-dollarization. De-dollarization is decoupling our financial needs, our liquidity needs, right, whenever it comes to money and money supply, right, from the dollar. For international transactions, we know that we use the dollar over a period of time. And that is where the RBI is trying to say become independent of that particular thing over a period of time, because we have seen that during crisis or during any adverse event in the US, right, those things get translated in dollar terms, and those dollar terms, right, be it appreciation, depreciation, hits our own country. So this is why we must be trying to promote the internationalization of our own rupee. Right? We must be using more and more rupee trade, right? And also, as we have seen recently in the Russia-Ukraine crisis, the US found it very convenient to impose various restrictions on the dollar to counter Russia and their allies. So India was also facing the heat of the particular activity, due to which India started promoting, say, Russia crude oil trade by actually bringing in rupee-ruble trade. It is also, India is also trying to engage in various Southeast Asian nations, the Gulf region, by promoting rupee to their own local currency trade by becoming less dependent on dollar. And we are also trying to build gold reserves in the country. We are trying to build up confidence over a period of time, because we know that gold is a very safe asset, right? Gold is considered as the safest asset that is possible, right? And also we understand, due to crisis and due to various other issues, the various risks abroad are multiplying, and gold is actually supplying a safer conduit for international trade and so on. That is why the greater amount of safe assets or gold that we have, it is underscoring the better amount of financial position which we will be there, right? And also we have understood this is some particular trend, that these two things are the particular trends with not only RBI are doing, but where most of the central banks of all of the world are practicing as of now, right? And we understand that the main strategy is actually on this particular two fronts, but also RBI wants to project India as a stronger country, because we know that as of now we are the economy which is the fastest growing in the world, right? And that is why it is showing from a condition in 1991 where we were dependent on the rest of the nations, on the international creditors for our international credit mechanisms, to this particular time where we have this amount of gold reserves, right? So it is a strategic significance for the country, because it is trying to shore up gold domestically. And also, one of the other benefits, the particular strategy is that it will be bring down the costs of storing the gold, because the Bank of England is having this exorbitant cost of storing gold, right? And also bringing gold to country helps RBI to diversify its assets over a period of time by diversifying the foreign exchange, build up the foreign exchange, because we know gold is also part of our foreign exchange of RBI, right? The various foreign reserves, right, that the RBI has. And finally, it is also giving us the weapons to combat inflation and various other economic crises in the country, right? So that was all for this month of November recitals, and here we have tried to discuss all of the economy articles. I hope you have followed the discussion and also made notes where we have discussed some important and extra materials. So with this, I wish all of my students Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. I will be seeing you again in the new year, and till then, all the best with your studies. Work hard to achieve your dreams, and best of luck till we meet again. Thank you.